Hey everyone. Alright, today's video is going to be about tax and tip. So your objective, I will calculate tax and tip using estimation and a proportion. So we are going to take everything we've been doing with percents and we are going to apply that to calculate tax and tip. So let's talk about what each one of those means. So I'm sure you've all heard of tax and tip before. You see this a lot anytime you're shopping, or if you're eating at a restaurant, if you're going to a salon, things like that. So sales tax, that's just a charge on the goods that you're purchasing, and it's a percentage from the purchase price. So I'm sure you've noticed anytime you go buy something, you have sales tax that is added on to that. A tip, that's a percentage of the price of a service that goes to the service worker. So I'm sure many of you, when you have gone to a restaurant, you've noticed that whoever is paying, they leave a tip for that waiter or waitress. And that is based on a percentage from the total bill. So our steps are still going to be the same. We still want to identify the percent, the part, and the whole, and obviously one of those will be missing. We want to estimate about what our answer should be, then set up the proportion and solve. Now I want to point out the part, that is the actual tax or tip amount. Okay, so down here I want to label that. Now the part, that is the amount of tax or tip. Okay, the whole, that is the original cost or original total. Okay, so the whole would be like if you're buying something, how much it costs before tax. That's the whole. Or if you're getting your bill at a restaurant, that's going to be like the total before you tip. Okay, so it's the original total. Obviously, the percent is going to be whichever number has the percent symbol, and that is going to be the tax or tip percentage. So in all of these problems, the part always represents the amount of tax or the amount of tip. Some of these questions may tell you to find the total cost. Think of that like the final cost. Okay, so then you would take that amount of tax or tip and just add it to the original total. All right, let's go ahead and do some examples together. Example 1, calculate 8% sales tax for a $74 purchase from a grocery store. Okay, so let's identify our parts here. Okay, we have a percent, that would be 8%. Now we're looking for the part and the whole. So the whole is whatever the original total was. So originally this purchase was $74. Now the part, that's going to be how much tax is going to be added on to this purchase. So I don't know what that part is. That's the actual tax. Okay, now I want to estimate. So we're finding 8% of 74, okay? And you know with tax, normally it's just adding on a small amount to your total. So I'm going to estimate that we're going to have a dollar amount that's a lot lower than 74. So let's go ahead and set up a proportion. So we have the part over the whole equals the percent over 100. Now we're going to cross multiply. That would be 100x, and we're going to do 74 times 8, and I'm going to come over here to the side to work that out. Okay, 4 times 8 is 32, 7 times 8 is 56, plus 3 is 59, so we would have 592, and when we do that divided by 100, x would equal 5.92. So this is money, so we always want to make sure we go out to the hundredths place because that's where our cents are. So that means that sales tax, it would be an additional $5.92. So that's the amount of tax that would be added on to the original cost. And we said this is going to be a dollar amount that's a lot less than 74, so $5.92 does make sense. Okay, now it says what would be the total cost for this purchase. So think of that like the final cost. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to take the original cost. So it was originally $74. Okay, now we're going to add the tax of $5.92. So the final cost would be $79.92. All right, example 2. Calculate a 20% tip for a $48 purchase from a restaurant. So again, let's identify everything we have. The percentage, they gave us 20%, so that's going to be the tip rate. Now we want to find the part and the whole. Remember, the whole is the original total, so it's saying that it was a $48 purchase, so that is like the original total, and we're missing that part. Okay, so that's going to be the amount of tip. How much do we need to tip for this? Now, a tip is a percentage of the original cost. So we know that, just like the last example, we know that we can estimate our answer to be a dollar amount that's going to be a lot less than 48 because it's 20%. 20 is kind of a lower percent. So let's set up a proportion. So I want the part over the whole, and that equals the percent over 100. Again, we're going to cross multiply. 48 times 2 would be 96, so I know 48 times 20 would be 960. And I'm going to divide each side by 100. And when I do 960 divided by 100, that would be 9.6. But again, this is money, so we know that the tip would be $9.60. Okay, and again, that answer does make sense. We know it's a dollar amount that's going to be less than 48. The tip is just part of that total. Now we want the total cost. So again, think of that like the final cost for the meal. So if it originally cost $48 and we're going to tip $9.60, we have to add those together to get that final cost. So this would have a grand total of $57.60. All right, example 3. So in this specific problem, we're going to solve for the tax or tip rate. Okay, so it says Lyle went to a restaurant and spent a total of $36 on his meal. If the original cost was $30, what percentage did he tip? Okay, so obviously the question is asking for a percentage, so we don't know what that percentage is. Now we want the part and we want the whole. Keep in mind, this is the original total. Okay, so originally, his meal cost $30. Okay, now, I'm sure you're looking at the 36 and you're thinking, well, that doesn't make sense to be a part if originally it was 30. So this 36 right here, that's the final cost. Okay, so remember from examples 1 and 2, to get the final cost, we had to take the original cost and then add the tax or tip. And in this specific example, we're talking about tip. So we take the original plus the tip, and that gives us the grand total. So if in the end he spent $36, so it was a $30 bill plus the tip, and that equals 36, I know that his tip amount would have had to have been $6. So that would be the part. That is the tip amount. Now I can set up a proportion. So I'm going to put the part over the whole. That's going to equal the percent over 100. Okay, so now we're going to cross multiply. Okay, so 30 times x, 30x, and 6 times 100 is 600. Now we're going to divide each side by 30. Okay, we can cancel our zeros here on top and bottom, and then 60 divided by 3 would be 20. So that means that this person tipped 20%. All right, now it's time for you to try. So make sure that you identify all your parts. Estimate first. Are you finding just part of the original cost, or are you going to have to find a grand total? And then make sure you set up your proportion and solve. All right, make sure you've got everything recorded, and I will see you next class day.